So, Joe, hi. Lovely to have you here in joining me on this podcast, this menopause podcast. So just to introduce myself to everybody. So I'm Sarah Shaw. I work in the education practice for Odgers Interim, but I am actually the menopause champion within Odgers. And several months ago now, we set up a sort of pilot group, which was a WhatsApp group. And out of that grew a lot of interest within Odgers to be able to actually construct something quite serious around supporting women in the workplace to help them understand about the menopause and how to help themselves and how to be sort of, I suppose, calmer and able to be productive at work and at ease. And as a result of all of that, we have now got a section within what's called our Unlimited Festival, which is diversity and inclusion, about the menopause. And I wanted to conduct a podcast with somebody who could support us and help us understand more about the menopause symptoms, the phases, and the rest of it. And you, Joe, are an expert. So I'm going to hand over to you. And if you just tell us all a little bit about yourself, and then we'll go from there.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jo Fuller. I'm founder of the Merry Menopause, which is an online platform community to raise awareness of the menopause. I'm a menopause and menstruation educator, so I believe that to have a merry menopause, you need to be in tune from as early an age as you can about your menstrual cycle, because the menopause starts before your periods stop. You know, perimenopause will start in your late 30s to early 40s, and a lot of women don't realise that. So I'm all about education on your menstrual cycle, taking you into perimenopause, how you can manage your menopause by understanding your cycle, and how many of the symptoms can be managed through lifestyle, or to give you the information that you need to make an empowered choice about any medication that you decide to take.
So, Joe, maybe we ought to start with what is the definition of a menopause? Maybe we ought to really understand what is a menopause.
Okay, so every woman will have a menopause.
Right.
And the menopause is the end of your fertile years. It's when your ovaries stop producing eggs, therefore you stop having a menstrual cycle, you stop having a monthly bleed. And when you haven't had a period for a clear 12 months, you are then in your menopause, your post-menopause. So the period of time, sort of 10 years up to that point, is your perimenopause, when you're still menstruating, and beyond that, your menopause, post-menopause. It's the same thing. The menopause is actually the one day, the very last day of your last bleed, which many women will look at retrospectively. They won't understand when that is. If you cycle track, if you join my train and start cycle tracking, you'll know exactly when that day occurred.
So it almost sounds like it's the perimenopausal stage, which is the stage that can have more of an impact than actually 12 months after your last period.
Yeah, absolutely, because obviously when you stop menstruating, you stop a hormonal cycle, so your hormones level out. Prior to that, you're still on a hormonal cycle, and you're losing your estrogen and your progesterone and your testosterone, the three sex hormones that dictate that cycle. And it's the drop off of those that causes the majority of the symptoms. And because so many people think that the menopause, that's something that happens in your 50s, you just start sweating in your 50s. That's so not what the menopause is. I mean, it is this transition, as I say, from like late 30s, really, I believe, up into about 51, 52, where you can be quite symptomatic, you can feel really out of sorts, but it can also be a really powerful time and bring up an awful lot of stuff in the past, and really drive you to do things and achieve things that maybe you didn't have the impetus to do earlier in life. So there's a way of harnessing that power, and there's a way of understanding those symptoms and getting them to work for you rather than against you.
Now, you've mentioned, I think, one of the symptoms that most people think about, which is flushing, or sometimes it's called flashing. But what are some of the other symptoms? Because I know that there's a huge variety of symptoms, and particularly those that might come into play and maybe impact on your ability in the workplace.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, not every woman has a hot flush, not every woman flashes. So it really is probably quite far down the list, but it's the most obvious one.
Yeah.
That's why it's referred to. So the three most common symptoms of the perimenopause that have a huge impact on women are cognitive. So that's brain fog, low mood, anxiety, and depression. And that can sort of start, you know, at an early age, late 30s, early 40s, and women will think, what on earth is going on? My mood, what's happened to me, I can feel completely different to how I did 6 months ago. And that's a really, really common sign that your estrogen is dropping off, that you're not producing so much estrogen when you ovulate. And those symptoms go really, really mistaken and misdiagnosed. So women will go to their doctors, they'll get put on anti-anxiety or antidepressants without being educated and told that actually you're at an age where this could be the perimenopause. Let's monitor it, let's look into it. Let's not needlessly give you medication that you probably don't need. Along with that, your sleep gets disrupted. So that then has a huge impact on your mood the following day, your ability at work, your competency, because you've had a bad night's sleep. So that's the kind of the main ones to look out for early, along with irregular periods. So your periods will start moving around.
It's interesting because some of the symptoms that you've mentioned also makes me think about that time, maybe when you're pregnant. So again, you can have a sort of fluctuation of hormones. And, some people call it preggy brain, when you forget, what something's called, and you lose track and you can't remember things well. And then, of course, you lose sleep often with a new baby. So there seems to be some sort of comparisons. But, of course, it's not spoken about in the menopause, where it's recognised when you're pregnant, when you're a new mum.
Yeah, I mean, we are at the mercy of our hormones. We're on a 28-day cycle until post-menopause, when we're not producing those hormones, or a very small amount, which is coming from our adrenals, which is why stress management is so important. From an early age, stress management should be taught in schools, along with better education on the menstrual cycle, because when you're post-menopause, you will get some backup hormones from your adrenals. But yeah, pregnancy, perimenopause, all about hormone fluctuations, ebbs and flows, highs and lows. And it's normal. There's nothing wrong with you. The menopause is an illness. You can't cure it, but you can support it. And I think the main area of support is educating yourself as to what is happening with your body, rather than going to a doctor who isn't necessarily well informed, who will misdiagnose you, give you medication you don't need, and you're not going to really feel any better.
And I think that's very true, because if I think back to myself and my early symptoms, I was just about the same year, maybe the second year I was at Odgers. So when I went to my doctor and they said, what kind of job have you got? And I explained, and I said, it was quite stressful and I had to travel the country. They immediately misdiagnosed me, I believe, when I look back, and said, oh, you're just very stressful. And it wasn't. I think when I think about it very carefully, it was much more the early signs, the perimenopausal signs of the menopause. And the most classic one for me was the itchiness. I used to get very, very itchy on my face. And they said that was stress, but it wasn't. It was, I think, a menopausal symptom.
Absolutely. I mean, I've developed a skin condition in my perimenopause. So estrogen is an anti-inflammatory and a lubricant. So we will start to notice the effects of that. So aching joints, dry eyes. There'll be various symptoms that will relate directly to that anti-inflammatory and that anti-lubrication. And I've developed a real allergy to fragrance. So since I stopped using any kind of fragrance product, and this goes back to our gut health, which is also affected by estrogen. Our peristalsis, our ability to digest and break down food, is affected by estrogen.
Wow.
And our gut's not working. That's why we get so many allergies, especially on the skin, because it's coming from the inside out. And I developed an allergy to fragrance. And as soon as I stopped using anything with fragrance, my skin calmed down completely.
Wow.
And I think because your body ingests anything you put on your skin,
yes,
the body absorbs. And I think my gut was going, I can't absorb all these cosmetics that you're putting on your skin and your hair. And it was its reaction. So I just use oil on my skin now, and my skin's never been better. And yeah, it's a really interesting. So all these little things that pop up, you might start taking antihistamine, you might stop.
Yes.
Look into it, go a bit deeper, make the lifestyle changes to support the symptoms that are coming up.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that, because I'm quite a firm believer in lifestyle changes, certainly in the sense that it worked for me. But what are some of the examples that you could sort of advise us on?
Okay, exercise, get moving. So although you're losing your hormones, you want to get rid of them. So although they're declining, what you don't want is them to build up in your body. And the way that we get rid of our excess hormones is when we go to the toilet and through our liver. And if we're not moving, we're not exercising, we're not going to be pushing those excess hormones out through our liver. And if we're eating a bad diet that doesn't agree with us, and everybody has a different, I could say eat chickpeas and spinach, might not agree with you. I can't eat chickpeas and spinach. They really don't agree with me. But a high fiber diet, get your body moving, get your excretion going. So exercise, really look into your diet, make sure you're going to the toilet at least once a day. Sugar is delicious, but it inflames us, it messes around with our energy, it messes about with our sleep. Sugar in any form, whether it's in alcohol, whether it's in dried fruit, whether it's in chocolate, whether it's in fresh fruit, monitor how much sugar you're taking. So exercise, look at your diet, and make sure you're getting sleep. And if you're not getting sleep, why aren't you getting sleep? Too much caffeine, too much sugar, not enough exercise, too much screen time. Our natural body wants us, we start producing melatonin about 9 o'clock at night. And that's, to get us to get to sleep. So in an ideal world, in your circadian rhythm, start winding down at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, get into bed with a book or a magazine or your partner and have a chat, and then naturally kind of wake up around 6, 6:30. If you're going to bed at midnight and you've just literally turned the screen off, and then you're waking up at 4 to go to the toilet, it's like, the health benefits of having a good night's sleep are huge.
And it's interesting because we're doing this podcast in not quite lockdown, but certainly in terms of where our ability to move around is much more constrained. And I've got to be honest, although there are lots of things I've actually really disliked about having to be at home, having to work from home, not going out to meetings, etc., I'm actually eating earlier because I'm home earlier. I'm more relaxed as I go to bed, and I've got a longer, more sort of elongated relaxation time, and I'm sleeping a lot better as a result, and I'm feeling a lot better. So though we've got the stresses of the pandemic in a strange sort of way, because I've had to change my behavior, and it's all sort of, as I say, much more relaxed. I think
how many women, Sarah, would have there's so many things about lockdown, good and bad, but I think a lot of women, getting up, getting the kids out the door to school, and then doing a commute and getting into work, how stressful would that first 2-3 hours of their morning be?
Very.
Their adrenals will be going insane, pumping out cortisol, they'll be reaching for caffeine, reaching for sugar. It was an enforced lifestyle change, which I know has been really hard on a lot of people, and a lot of people, haven't come out of it well. But I think for a good chunk of the population, that morning routine of just taking it easier, not rushing out the door to get to the kids to school, not grabbing something on the go to eat, an enforced change that I think has benefited many people, and especially women, because they will take the burden of that morning routine, I'm sure.
Yeah, and like I say, also for me, the evening routine, I often wasn't getting home till 7:30, 8. Then we weren't eating till 8:30, 9. And then I might be doing a bit more work or something, and I was going to bed much, much later. So you're right. I think that there's ways and means of getting the best out of a situation. But that's incredibly helpful. What is it that an employer can do to be able to support the women in the workplace who might be experiencing or starting on that sort of menopause journey?
Make it an open conversation.
Right.
Make it as normal as pregnancy. Somebody walks in and says, "Oh, I'm 3 months pregnant. I've been dying to tell you." Make it as normal as that for a woman to go, "You know what? I'm perimenopausal. I had a dreadful night's sleep last night. I'm really anxious. I've got a big presentation coming up. I'm really anxious." Just normalize it, make it open and accessible. Have a menopause at workplace policy sitting next to your maternity policy and your inclusion and diversity. Because we are getting cases now where tribunals are happening where women are not supported at work, and they are taking time off, and they're being disciplined for having time off because actually they don't feel comfortable in being completely honest about where they are and why they're not at work. So it's, the first stage is open up, which is what Odgers are doing. This is amazing. This is why I'm a big, fan of yours, Sarah, and a big support of what you're doing, because it is hugely, hugely important. It's going to change lives.
And in fact, tomorrow I'll be looking at the menopause policy. It's been put together. It's just been finished today.
Amazing.
We've got a page on our HR page. So if one wants to go and look and see how HR can support us, it's there.
Yep.
And obviously, we've got our allies pages, and Menopause has a page devoted to itself on the intranet. So we've already got 2 or 3 places where our employers can go look and access.
And then line man, I mean, so you've got, you know, HR educated, the workforce are educated, but line managers need to be educated in how to support, how to notice the symptoms, and maybe how to broach that conversation. If they can recognise it in somebody, maybe she's not recognising it in herself, so that, you know, they can have a conversation. So yes, it's a tiered thing, and yeah, just make it normal. You know, this is, you know, myself and the Merry Menopause, we just want to remove that stigma. You know, this is not a disability, it's not an illness, it is a stage of life that everyone will go through. Some women won't be symptomatic, some women will. Some people will just sail through it, and some people have a really, really tough time. And, you know, there are external factors that will impact a woman's experience of her menopause, mainly stress.
Yes.
And whether that comes from work, from home life, from health issues, you know, it's all around managing that stress. And as we know, we manage stress through making lifestyle changes and being brave. You've got to be really brave. Really brave.
Definitely. And the other thing, of course, we've done, and you're talking about how to engage with people, and as you say, remove the stigma. So we've got a WhatsApp group where that's slightly more informal, where we can put a few jokes on there and maybe copy something that we've seen in a magazine. So I am noticing that there is more coverage of it, and there's some famous people. You've told me earlier that you're going to be speaking to Meg Matthews, and she's written on it, and there have been India Nights in the Sunday supplements has written about the menopause. So it seems to be something that is you can engage with a lot more easily and isn't as embarrassing, certainly, as it used to be to talk about and think about.
I mean, it's wonderful. It's normalising, you know, not in our lifetime, Sarah, unfortunately, but, you know, it's gone on the curriculum now in the national curriculum. It will actually be, I don't know how much time they're giving it, but it will actually, you know, be mentioned. So people leave school knowing that it exists. You know, so it is getting normalised. It is becoming an open conversation. And, you know, women still are embarrassed about talking about it, because what the society thinks about the menopause is that it means you're over the hill, you're aging, you know, you're drying up, your productivity's going, your libido's going, your joie la vie is going. It's not true. If you buy into that, then yes, of course, you know, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. But, you know, there are people out there, people like myself, people like Meg Matthews, that are living a really full life and enjoying it and managing it and talking about it. You know, listen to us. Don't buy into the negative connotations. Don't listen to that narrative. It's outdated. It's, you know, this is a brilliant time for women, and we've got to embrace it.
Absolutely. Now, the one thing we haven't touched on, we've talked a lot about lifestyle and education and understanding, but of course most people think, oh, the way you get over the menopause is HRT. So there is an option, isn't there? Can you talk a little bit about that?
So you can't get over the menopause. I don't mean to make you wrong, but you can't get over the menopause. You have to go through it.
Yeah.
Estrogen is the main hormone that's responsible for the majority of the symptoms that can impact a woman's life. I don't feel that any woman should suffer. No woman should suffer. So if medication is an option for you, then, and available to you, but you need to discuss it. You need, what I really want is just, I think HRT, there are many benefits to HRT, but and many more benefits than there are to side effects, by the way. So it is actually a very safe form of medication to take. But get educated on it. Why have you got these symptoms? Why are you not sleeping? Why are you putting on weight? Why is your skin itching? What, you know, all these things, before you just go, I'm going to take HRT and it's all going to go away. Because what's going to happen with HRT is you're going to replenish your estrogen.
Yeah.
You're never actually going to feel the menopause. You are going to subdue it. And actually to go through it and to come out hormone free is going to be really, really powerful, albeit it might be tough, really, really powerful transition. And if you continually take HRT, you're not going to experience it. You're not going to benefit from actually going through that transition.
Brilliant. I'm out the other side, so I know what you mean by that. And it was painful and difficult. But
it's like a
I
rebirth.
educated myself, I read up, I researched, I tried things. And if something didn't work for a couple of months, if I tried that, some supplement or something, I'd then think, okay, let's try another one. I wouldn't give up. And I think that's what's important, isn't it? Is to sort of not give up and
Oh God, don't give
try.
up. And if your symptoms are that bad that you're on the verge of giving up, then yes, seek some medical intervention. But what I would really love to see is that you go into a GP's office and they have a chat with you like this. I know they don't have the time, but that they have a really good chat. This is what's happening to you. This is why it's happening. It's not going to go away. Have a think about it. This is some information on HRT. This is some information on lifestyle. Have a think about it. Come back and see me in 2 weeks. You know, not just dish out majority of women, GPs won't even give them HRT. They just give them antidepressants and anti-anxiety and anti-inflammatory drugs. I mean, my legs last week were so heavy and so painful, but I knew that was because I hadn't ovulated this month. I hadn't produced any estrogen. I knew what that was. Really unpleasant, quite scary if you don't know what that is. And I know somebody my age who's just been put on anti-inflammatory drugs with the same symptom, and she's been diagnosed as having rheumatoid arthritis.
Oh.
I bet you haven't got rheumatoid arthritis. And
That's
it's like there's no conversation, no education around it. They've just given that. She's going to be on anti-inflammatories for the rest of her life.
And of course, that's it. You're on drugs that you don't need to be on. And
and 80% autoimmune deficiency, like sorry, I'm trying to get everything out. Rheumatoid arthritis occur in women, don't occur in men. And it's like women in their 50s get diagnosed with these conditions, and nobody in the medical world seems to be going, estrogen, inflammation.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's what I'm here.
Last takeaway, anything we haven't covered that you think people within Odgers should know about?
Educate before you medicate.
Yep.
Any symptoms, you know, late 30s, early 40s, while you're still having your periods, if you're starting to feel a little bit strange, things are starting to go a little bit awry, don't worry, don't be scared, prepare yourself, be prepared, not scared, educate yourself. This is a powerful natural transition. There's nothing wrong with you. It's not an illness. It's going to be okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Embrace it and, you know, speak to somebody like Sarah. Come and, you know, follow somebody like myself on Meg Matthews and just understand what's happening.
That's brilliant, Jo. Thank you. I know you're going to be busy next month. October is World Menopause Month, and 18th of October is World Menopause Day. So there's going to be a lot more information coming out in October that we can all access. But I'm ever so grateful for your time. Thank you so much indeed, and all the best to you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone at Odgers. You're doing a fantastic job. So, yeah. And Thanks, Sarah, especially. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.